Hello friends, today's video is on the revolution, and I want to preface this by saying that I don't intend in this video to go into great detail about Marxist-Leninism versus anarchism, blah blah blah. I might make another video about that, but I don't intend to get into any arguments with people because of this. I'm just putting my opinion out there as an anarchist and what I believe that the revolution should be, not in any specific way, but in more of a broad sense. That's just all I want to say before we go into this. I think that oftentimes the revolution is very misunderstood by a lot of leftists, especially a lot of leftists who aren't revolutionary yet. People who still kind of want to they think we can get to a better place just through reforming the system and not through overthrowing it. First thing I want to make clear is that I truly don't think that you can plan out the revolution, that there's a sort of framework for the revolution. I think that it ultimately has to be a natural process. And more deeper than that, I think that most people don't see the revolution as anything other than a material process, anything other than a shift in power or just a shift in systems. And that's just fundamentally not true. And in fact, I think the more important aspect of the revolution is the spiritual one. The revolution is not an event, but rather a philosophical shift, a gradual philosophical shift within society. And what I mean by this is, to get to the heart of this, hierarchy maintains itself in our current society by enforcing a system of values in which the individual attaches themselves to the external instead of focusing inwardly, where they attach themselves to external achievements, external relationships with the state and with hierarchy and with power. So within hierarchy, and Foucault points this out very well, the individual is always individualized and objectified in relation to the apparatus of power that exists. Your identity becomes not a sort of ever-changing, developing, fluid thing that you discover about yourself, but it becomes you as a cog in the machine, essentially. And therefore, we need specifically a existentialist shift in the values of individuals. And this includes fundamentally a rejection of hierarchy in all of its forms. The revolution cannot consist of an exertion of force or a sort of violent upheaval, because people have to choose revolution. They have to change how they live and how they view the world. And you can't make people reject hierarchy by just establishing a different hierarchy. It doesn't work that way. It must be natural, and a change in the very soul, the very heart of the people. And that doesn't mean just sitting around, okay? Revolution is a struggle of ideas and of values. And so it is to be fought through discourse and by example. The greatest power that any of us as individuals have is over the people, and not power, but the greatest influence that we have as revolutionaries is over the people who are most immediate to us in our life, our friends, our family, our coworkers, right? And through talking openly to these people, making them more open-minded about revolutionary ideas and philosophical values, you make the greatest change that anyone really can as an individual. And ultimately, I believe that the revolution starts and ends on this most bottom up, this most local, smallest level possible, between individuals having discourse, communicating their values and sharing their values. And That's what's so important. That's what the revolution looks like to me. Not let's establish a vanguard party to overthrow the government. And you know what I'm saying? I don't want to discredit anything like violent revolution. In many cases, I would much prefer a socialist state over a capitalist state. I would much prefer that. And the violence of the state requires self-defense. I don't want to go too far into that here, but there's necessary material things that need to be done. I am not discrediting that. What I am saying is that always and at all times, we should never distract ourselves from the actuality of revolution, which is that it is a spiritual thing, and it must be a spiritual thing, and it must always attempt to reject hierarchy. Even if we have to establish hierarchy, or if hierarchy gets established after we overthrow capitalism, for example, we still need to be fighting against that hierarchy. And a lot of the things I've gone over here are very vague, and intentionally so, because I don't intend to go on a 2-hour rant here about existentialist philosophy, and I also don't intend to go on a big rant here about, specific ideologies of revolution. I'm more so just putting my opinion out there about how I feel about the revolution and how I truly do think it must be a natural thing. And this is for all leftists to hear and sort of understand, and hopefully sympathize with. My take is really that only as individuals do we gain freedom for ourselves and for our society. So I hope you engage with this in good faith, and I will see you in the next video.